All right, get this today's deep dive. Well, it takes us to a conspiracy theory. It's a big one. It rivals the ship at its center, really. We're talking about the Titanic. But not just the iceberg and the tragedy, all that. This one claims the Titanic never even sank.
Yeah, it's not about how it went down, you see. It's saying a totally different ship sank entirely.
Okay, I'm in. So what ship are we talking about here?
The Olympic. Titanic's twin, practically. Sister ship, also built by White Star Line. They were built around the same time, too. And that's where things get kind of interesting.
Okay, before we get too far, for people who don't know every detail of ocean liners, why would anyone even want to swap these huge ships? In the first place, I mean. It seems a little extreme.
Well, here's where it gets good. The Olympic, she had a little fender bender, you can say.
Okay.
In 1911, she hit a British warship, the HMS Hawk, and the damage was, yes, pretty bad. Let's just say the repairs were not cheap.
So insurance fraud. Somebody saw dollar signs in all that wreckage.
Yeah, that's the theory. White Star Line, with these huge repair bills, they decided, why not pull off a switcheroo? Take the damaged Olympic, fix her up, make her look all nice, rebrand her as the Titanic, and then what...
Hold on. I'm not a shipbuilder or anything, but these ships have, serial numbers, right? Blueprints. Someone would notice.
See, that's where the real intrigue comes in. This isn't just some random theory someone made up. There were some really strange things surrounding the disaster. For instance, J.P. Morgan, the guy who owned White Star Line, canceled his trip on the Titanic last minute. Kind of suspicious, right?
Definitely suspicious. Okay, so we've got motive. We've got a mastermind, maybe.
Maybe.
But how could they actually do it? Swap the ships? I mean, it's not like switching out your neighbor's car.
That is the million-dollar question. The logistics, wow. It's mind-boggling. We're talking thousands of people. Crew members, dock workers, passengers. Any one of them could have said something.
And that's not even thinking about actually moving those ships. What, did they just use a bunch of tugboats?
Well, the conspiracy is that they did the swap. While both ships were in port for repairs, getting refitted. The idea being that with all the chaos at the shipyard, switching out a nameplate here, moving some deck chairs there, it wouldn't seem that out of place.
Okay. Let's say, just hypothetically, they swapped the ships. Where's the proof? What makes people think it wasn't just an accident?
This is where it gets good. Remember those inconsistencies? Some survivors. They said that the ship's layout didn't match the blueprints.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Like the location of rooms, how the deck looked, all those kinds of details.
You're saying people were on this unsinkable ship and thought, hold on, wasn't the gift shop over there?
It does sound crazy, but those little details, they kept the theory alive. It gave people a reason to question things.
So we've got, what? We've got a motive, weird stuff happening, and eyewitnesses who? Whose stories don't add up? I'm starting to see how this theory got started. It wasn't all smooth sailing, right? There had to be some holes in the story.
Oh, definitely. And that's where we look at the evidence against the swap, starting with the mountains of documents that, they kind of ruin the whole theory.
All right, let's hear it. What kind of documents were we talking about? All right, let's hear it. What kind of documents were we talking about?
We're talking photographs, construction records, blueprints, the whole 9 yards. Both ships, Titanic and Olympic, they were documented like crazy from when they were being built in Belfast, all the way to their first trips out.
So those old photos you see, the black and white ones, what can those really tell us?
More than you'd think, actually. Experts have gone over those photos, comparing tiny details between the two ships, and they found differences.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so the portholes on the hulls, they weren't in the exact same spots on both ships. The Titanics were a bit different from the Olympics. And the promenade deck, where the first-class passengers hung out, it was laid out differently on each ship. You can see it in the pictures.
Okay, so you could zoom in on a photo and be like, see? That's the Titanic, not the Olympic.
Yep. And these weren't just like surface things. Remember the lifeboats? The types and how they were set up? Different on each ship. Again, documented in the photos.
Okay, so the pictures are a point against the swap. But those were taken before the Titanic sank, right? What about after?
Good point. The Olympic didn't just vanish. She sailed for another 20 years after. And in all that time, there are records, photographs, people writing about her. And they all call her the Olympic. No mention of a big switcheroo.
That's a long time to keep a secret like that.
Tell me about it. Plus, think about everyone who would have known. The sailors, the captain, people in the shipyards. Someone would have talked.
Right. You'd think someone would have cracked. So we've got photos, ship logs, all saying it's the Olympic. Anything else debunking this?
Oh, there's one more thing, a big one. They found the Titanic's wreckage.
Oh, yeah. In 1985, I forgot about that. How could anyone deny it after seeing that? The Titanic right there on the ocean floor?
It changed everything. They could finally study the wreck, really study it, and those studies confirmed what ship it was. They matched the wreckage to the blueprints. Stuff like the propeller markings, it all lined up.
Wow, they could tell from the propeller. Incredible. But, hold on. Couldn't they have swapped the propellers, too?
Get this. They found serial numbers on some of the wreckage. And guess what? They matched the Titanic's records, not the Olympic.
So the ship was like, I'm the Titanic. Case closed, right?
You'd think, wouldn't you? But conspiracy theories, they're like that. Even with all the proof, some people hold on.
Why? With all the evidence against it, why believe it?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's about how we understand things, you see. How we make sense of tragedy. Conspiracy theories, they give a sense of control.
Control.
Yeah. Instead of random accidents, it's someone's plan, someone's doing, even if that someone is, a villain.
So with the Titanic, it's almost easier to believe in a plan than just a bunch of bad luck.
Kind of, yeah. It's easier to understand a bad guy than to think about how powerful nature is and how fragile we are, even our biggest creations.
So with the Titanic, it's almost easier to believe in a plan than just a bunch of bad luck.
Kind of, yeah. It's easier to understand a bad guy than to think about how powerful nature is and how fragile we are, even our biggest creations.
So instead of an iceberg, some people would rather believe that powerful people made the Titanic sink on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when you find out there's no ghost, it's just someone playing a trick. Sometimes blaming a person, even a made-up person, is easier than accepting that sometimes. Bad things just happen.
That's a good way to put it. But why the Titanic? I mean, other historical events have conspiracy theories. Why so many about the Titanic?
You're right, it's not that unique. But the Titanic, it's like a Greek tragedy. Too much pride, signs of doom going up against fate. It was huge. Everyone was talking about it.
Unsinkable ship sinks on its first voyage. You can't make that up.
Exactly. And it stays with you, all that drama. We have the facts, but part of us wants more. We want it to make sense. All those lives lost. A tragedy that maybe could have been avoided.
It's just a conspiracy theory. It keeps the story going. It adds new meaning to something that happened over 100 years ago.
Exactly. Plus, let's face it, what ifs are always more interesting. What if there was a plan? What if the wreck isn't even the real Titanic? It's fun to think about, It makes you see history in a new light.
So where does that leave us? Are conspiracy theories like this just for fun, or can we learn something from them?
I think it's both. We have to be skeptical, look at the evidence, don't get lost in the details, But it's important to understand why people believe them. What do they tell us about how we see the world?
So the evidence says the Titanic swap didn't happen. But it makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. It reminds us that history isn't just facts. It's a story we tell over and over again. And sometimes new evidence pops up, even for events we thought were solved.
Well, until then, one thing's for sure. The Titanic and all its secrets, it'll keep fascinating us for a long, long time. We hope this deep dive gave you a new way of thinking about the Titanic conspiracy, but also the power of stories and thinking critically when you hear something that sounds too good to be true. So keep asking questions, keep exploring, and remember, sometimes the most interesting discoveries are the ones that make us question everything. We'll see you on the next deep dive.